Hello everybody, this is John from Compass Rose Bushcraft, and I want to do a brief video today about flint and steel fire. I know that there are a number of videos out there on flint steel and its methods and how to make fire with it, but I was asked to do this one by a friend, and so I'll show some of my equipment and my technique. The other thing is that I've found over the years that I enjoy flint and steel fire because I find that so often fire is, with using a match or a lighter, is just so instant and so quick. We miss some of the almost mystical quality of it when you strike the spark, and then you have to, with attention and focus, slowly nurture it into a flame. And of course matches get wet and lighters run out of fuel, and I have found flint and steel with the appropriate preparation to be a really reliable way of making fire. And so I'll walk you through the equipment that I have and the process that I follow in terms of making fire with flint and steel. So the first thing I want to show you is my fire kit. And my fire kit is in a dry bag because I've just come off of a short canoe trip, and important to keep whatever fire making equipment you have dry. And then inside of the dry bag I always carry with me some jute twine, which I find is a wonderful tinder, and I'll talk about that again in a moment. And then inside of the dry bag I have a oilcloth canvas pouch that I keep my fire kit in, and when I'm hiking, this is what I carry at my belt. And so to open that up, then inside I have the fire kit itself, which I keep wrapped in some plastic at all times. And the fire kit is in an old 35mm film canister that I was given some years ago, and inside of it I keep a small piece of fat wood, so I can take shavings off of that to put in the bundle if I want to prolong the fire. My steel, and a little bit of old beat up cotton washcloth that I can take strips off to add to the tinder bundle. The flint that I have, some scraps of cotton which I use at various times to help supplement the tinder bundle, my char cloth, which I make myself, and I'll do a video on that at some point. Each person has their own kind of technique for that. And I've kept in my fire kit one of the little silica gel packets that you get from medications as a way of helping to keep it dry when it's not in use and in all kinds of weathers. The first thing that's important, I find, with flint steel fire is to prepare your tinder. And I, generally speaking, use 3 tinders. I may use a bundle of dried grass that you make into a bird's nest to take the char cloth. The jute twine, which I carry with me because it really does make a great tinder, but what you have to do is take the jute twine and untwine it and work it into kind of a loose nest of jute fibers. And this takes a little bit of work, but it's well worth it because it takes a really great spark, and it works well in terms of blowing it into flame. And the other is a cedar bark, and for this I take the outside bark of cedars because I don't want to risk damaging the tree, and just take the stringy bits that you can get in just under the surface layer and get a handful of those. And even on a rainy day, often the underside of the cedar tree will be quite dry and you can get good tinder, and this works really, really well. And just to show you collecting the cedar bark, I'm using my XXX Canadian Bushman, and you start to scrape the tree with the spine of the knife, just scraping some of the outside stringy bits. The idea is not to scrape deep enough to damage the tree, but just enough to get some of the strings of cedar bark which are on the outside before you work your way through into the tree. and you get some really nice strings of the bark that can be worked together into a bird's nest that will take the spark. So that's the setup, and it's important to have all of that ready along with the fire lay. And if you have all of that ready, then the process itself is very simple. So there are two methods that I'm aware of for starting a flint steel fire. The first is to take your fire steel and hold it with one hand and strike downward with the flint. Here, I'll move it up and see if you can see the sparks coming off of that. And that method, you strike down into your char cloth or your punk wood that has been charred, and the sparks fly down. And the sparks are created by the hard rock taking minute chips of the steel off. And when that happens, the steel oxidizes very quickly and it produces heat that creates a spark. The other and my preferred method is to take the char cloth, to put it on top of the flint, and then to strike down. And when you do that, again, the flint scrapes off minute particles of the steel in such a way that the sparks enter the char cloth. And you may or may not be able to see that, but already with just a couple of strikes there is a small spark in the char cloth, and it is, I'll blow on it, see if it helps, glowing red already, and essentially ready to be turned into fire. And I'll stamp on that, put it out, because I'm not ready to start the fire yet. So those are the two methods that I'm aware of for using the flint striker: striking down with the flint on the steel into the char cloth, or putting the char cloth on the rock and striking up with the steel on the flint. So now let's start a fire. I prepared a jute bundle and some cedar bark, which I'll put in that, and I'll get all of that going. So the char cloth, the flint, the steel, find a sharp edge, it lit the second time. You can see perhaps that it's starting to glow. You see the white where it's burned through. It goes into the tinder bundle, wrapped around, and very gently get some air in there, begin to blow. And we have flame. So that's the process for flint and steel, and it's something for me just never gets old, being able to strike the steel on the flint and have the ability with gentleness and with some focus to be able to create a fire. And then that jute bundle would go into the fire lay with your kindling, and away it goes for a fire. So this is John from Compass Rose Bushcraft. Thank you for dropping by, and that's my demonstration of flint and steel. Thank you very much. Please like, share, and subscribe.